Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and we are broadcasting through the Exceptional Conservative Network and SHR Media. It is a beautiful, well, not so beautiful actually, rainy 52 degrees here in Cape May County this morning. Cape May County, New Jersey. So it's a little bit dreary, but it's not cold, so I'll take it. I'm good with that. Absolutely, positively good with that as long as it's not cold. I'm all right with that. This morning, we have as our guest Dr. Andrew Jacobs. He is a renowned sports psychologist. We're going to talk Final Four and what it takes to win at sports, business, and in life. So I'm going to be slightly out of my wheelhouse in the sports arena, but the business aspect I'm good. So it should be a good conversation. But the thing is, those principles can be applied in several different areas. So it should be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. There are many arguments that one of the reasons why it's good for kids and such to participate in sports is because it can be applied to many of the things that you learn can be applied to life and to work, etc. So I'm excited to have him on this morning. But first, a bit of housekeeping. If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you may do so at MoneyTalkMel, or on Facebook at Money Talk with Melanie. If you'd like to email me, tell me I have an ugly jacket on today, something like that. Or you have show ideas, please do email me at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com. Now, if you are listening on Spreaker, I am now streaming live on Ustream. So, which is exciting. So I get to stream live on Ustream, so you can see my face and my expressions as I'm talking to my guests. And in the chat room. The chat room is a very exciting place to be. You want to go there and chat with the awesome listeners, my awesome listeners, and myself. You can do so by going to theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. And if you click on TECN Midday or TECN.biz, actually TECN.biz is where you can see me streaming live on Ustream and chat at the same time with everyone in the chat room. So you want to do that. You can ask questions of my guests if you would like to, things like that. And I totally will ask and use your name and all that good stuff. So do join us in the chat room. Finally, if you would like to join our esteemed list of guests, such as the one we have today, we had Senator Albert Guillory the other day. We've had Senator Ted Harvey, Colonel Rob Maness. We've had Ebony Williams back, and I'm happy to announce that I spoke with her yesterday via email, and she's coming back in a couple of weeks. So I will finalize that date, I'm sure, by next week. But I believe it's going to be April 10th, but I'll keep you posted on that. Ebony K. Williams is a Fox News contributor. She's on Outnumbered all the time. She and I are going to talk about that immigration case in Rockville, Maryland, and immigration law, and how it affects the economy. But she's a lawyer and just very sharp, and we're going to talk about that when she comes back in a couple of weeks. So I'm excited about that. But if you would like to join that esteemed list of guests, you may do so by going to theexceptionalconservativeshow.com and clicking on Contact Us, and then giving us your information, and we will get back to you. Or you can give us a call at 202-660-1329. And I see Mr. Willie Lawson is in the chat room. His show is just before mine. The Willie Lawson Show. It's a fantastic show. Willie Lawson's like a multi-talented guy. You want to watch his show. He's a brilliant guy. Comes on at 9 o'clock on the Exceptional Conservative show. Excuse me, the Exceptional Conservative Network. I see Miss Claudia is in the chat room. Love her. So you want to join the chat room? Come hang out, talk, chat, ask questions, etc. So what is in the news? Okay, well, Donald Trump is handling the regulations. All these regulations that he promised he would take care of, he is now doing that. Starting with Tuesday, he directed the EPA to start rewriting the Clean Power Plant, which was instituted by President Obama. And it would have closed hundreds of coal-fired power plants. So he asked them to rewrite that. However, there are CEOs from many different large companies like your Microsofts, your Googles, etc., Apple, that are trying to convince him to kind of backtrack on that because they're huge climate change believers, etc. So we'll see how that turns out. They feel as though it's a strong threat to climate change, and some of these people are actually on his business council. So it'll be interesting to see how much of that council he follows, because here's the thing: whether or not they really believe in it or not, it affects their business. The whole opinion, and whether or not they're doing something about it or appear to be doing something about it, makes a difference. So that's the thing. In other news, Lloyd's of London is saying that they're going to establish a new European subsidiary in Brussels, and that's in reaction to the UK leaving the EU. And a lot of businesses are doing that. I've been talking about different businesses who have been making arrangements to do that, and the Lloyd's of London is just kind of like the latest in businesses that are making preparations for the whole Brexit situation. So it's just interesting to watch because the Brexit hasn't totally taken place yet. I mean, they've just really started negotiating the other day. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects the market, our economy, their economy. It's just a really kind of an unprecedented thing. So it's something we want to watch. Now, in really just strange, weird business news, and for me, because I'm a techie, it made me. I'm really interested in it because I'm a tech geek, but at the same time, I'm kind of creeped out. So, so when I tell you this, so the CEO Elon Musk, right? Who's the CEO at Tesla and SpaceX. Well, he started another company called Neuralink, and what it is seeking to do is to make implants for the human brain so that you can interface with the computer. Now, this is according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, I'm not going to lie. I've often made jokes about marrying my MacBook. It's a thing. It's a joke, people. Don't say, oh, she's so lonely. It's not really all that bad. But I just love my MacBook like almost that much, and it doesn't give me a hard time. So, but and how much more so if I could just communicate with it just using my brain. And think in terms of the first thing I thought of was the movie Minority Report. Back in the day when I saw that, where they could read your mind and tell whether or not you were going to commit a crime, and then they would come arrest you before you committed the crime. Like, bye Constitution. But there was a rumor, or there used to be this saying going around, like, if you see something in a movie, the technology already exists. Which, if that's the case, I'm still waiting for my Star Trek, like, computer that will make a meal just by asking for it. Like, where's that? And where's the transporter thing? That too. I'm just saying. Where are those two things? But yeah. So he's now part of what that technology may be able to do is help find a cure for epilepsy or Parkinson's. So on a serious note, that's actually a really great thing. So it's something to keep. It's definitely something to keep your eye on. I would say. So it's exciting, and especially if you're geeky like myself, it's something that you want to keep your eye on. It's exciting and creepy all at the same time. So in a few minutes, we will be back. In 3 minutes, we will be back with Dr. Andrew Jacobs, sports psychologist, to talk about the Final Four and talk about how sports psychology and winning can apply in every aspect of your life. We will be back in about 3 minutes.
It's time to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. Ken McClinton and the Exceptional Conservative Show celebrate 7 years of excellence in broadcasting here on the Exceptional Conservative Network. 9:05 p.m. Monday through Thursday. The
Perfect timing. I was just about to call you.
Anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time
to
celebrate.
I'm sorry,
I'm good.
We're on a commercial break. I was saying perfect timing because I was just about to call you. Literally had the phone in my hand.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Why don't you call me on the other number I gave? This is a cell phone. The other one's a landline. That'll be easier.
Okay, which one? Because there's 3.
Every Sunday morning.
760-564-3722.
You got it. I'll call you right back.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Israel with guests from Israel and around the world.
That's the Real Clear Israel. 10:05 Sunday on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Good morning.
I'm Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Okay, folks, that's not how it goes. I think I'm Shannon, and you're Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. We are The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Live on SHR Media.
And on TECN.
Where we'll be talking about all kinds of things.
From sports and politics.
To food and entertainment.
To money.
Family.
And anything else in between.
Community, holidays, all kinds of things.
It'll be great. Join us from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I hear you great. Thank you so much for doing the show today.
How are you today?
Human by race.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Faith.
Well, me too.
American by nationality. Conservative by choice.
So how long will we be on for?
About 10:55. Does that work for you?
The Exceptional Conservative.
10:50. Okay, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay, we'll be live in about 30 seconds.
Okay, great.
The Right Guy on TECN. You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.
Okay, we are back. You are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I am so happy to have with us this morning Dr. Andrew Jacobs, sports psychologist and author of the book. Wait a minute, I want to make sure that I get this exactly right. Author of the book, Just Let 'Em Play. He's one of the country's most respected sports psychologists. He works with athletes of all ages, from the young ones to college athletes, professional athletes, and Olympic competitors. He's called a pioneer in mental training. He's one of the first sports psychologists to work with the U.S. Olympic team, a professional team, and a university athletic department. One of the things that he explains, I love this, in his book, Just Let 'Em Play, is the importance of winning and losing, success and failure, and why it's okay not to give every athlete a trophy. I love it. And the role of parents, coaches, officials, and athletes, which, it should be required reading for every parent who has a kid who plays sports. His book is available at winnersunlimited.com, and he's been in private practice in Kansas City since 1981. Good morning, Dr. Jacobs. How are you this morning?
I'm great, Melanie. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Now, I'm gonna give you a little, just so you know up front, don't know a whole lot about sports. I'm called.
Well, that's okay. You don't have to know a lot about sports.
I'm called the business diva for a reason, not the sports diva. but I do understand many of the principles that are applied here, and I am really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, all these principles apply to life. It's not just sports, but life. It's everything.
Absolutely, and I would think life and in business, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur or whatever, an executive, the same principles can be applied. I would think.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We all succeed and fail. We all win and lose, and it doesn't have to be sports. It can be relationships. It can be business. It can be, school, marriages, debate, arts. It doesn't matter. I work with people, specifically athletes, but I work with everybody in dealing with these types of issues. And, the whole thing, Melanie, that I try to talk to people about, my definition of winning is going out and doing your best. There's only one team or one person who comes in first place in a competition, but everybody can be a winner if they've accomplished their goals, and that's how I try to look at things.
I love it. Now, before we get into the meat of the conversation, can you give the audience a little bit about your background? I gave them, the bio, but can you tell the audience a little more detail about your background?
Well, sure. I grew up in Kansas City, went to Vanderbilt University, then I got my PhD out in San Diego, California, at a place called the California School of Professional Psychology, and was in one of the first organized sports psychology training programs in the country. I moved back to Kansas City where I grew up, and I've been in practice there for 36 years, and I've been fortunate enough to work with all levels of athletes. I've had a private practice. I've also hosted a radio show for 26 years in Kansas City called the Dr. Andrew Jacobs Sports Psychology Hour, and I deal with people privately. I work with teams. I work with individual coaches, athletes, parents, and as you mentioned earlier, just completed our book, Just Let Him Play, which I co-wrote with three-time All-Star pitcher Jeff Montgomery, who's in the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame, and Olympic swim coach Pete Malone, who's in the USA Swimming Coaches Hall of Fame. And it's a book that we decided to put together. I've had people for years want me to put a book together about youth sports, and youth sports has turned into a craze these days, Melanie. We've got parents getting kids involved in sports at ages 3 and 4. You're getting organized leagues going on, and there's a lot of pressure on kids to succeed, and unfortunately a lot of it comes from parents and coaches who put their egos in play more than they're interested in the kids getting better.
Exactly. And as a former public school teacher and an aunt to 2 nephews, I can fully attest to that. Who both played sports since they were tiny. I can fully attest to just the role and how fanatical some parents can be. I mean, a child can be failing a class and still playing sports on the weekend, and you're going, what's going on? Where's the priorities? If he doesn't graduate from school, he's gonna have a problem. So,
well, it's interesting because I have so many people that work with me with their kids, and I'm getting younger and younger kids coming in my office now, getting down to ages 8, 9, and 10. And in fact, I have a young lady I'm seeing. I started working with last week, who's turning 9 this year, and she rides horses. And she's a competitive rider, and she gets nervous on top of the horse. She's afraid of falling, and she's got 2 wonderful parents, and they want her to come work with me just to help her self-confidence, because I'm finding that we're getting young and younger kids. Now, she's an exception because her parents are very positive and supportive, but I'm getting a lot of young people coming in to talk to me with parents who are so competitive and want their kids to win and say, listen, if we do well, there's a scholarship available. And I point out to them that yes, there might be a scholarship available, but are you aware that there are more academic scholarships available than there are athletic scholarships?
Right.
And most people aren't even aware of that.
Right. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And it's hard to tell what the motives are many times. It really is. But some parents are really, it's a little scary what's going on. So what exactly is it that a sports psychologist does? So when someone comes to you, and I'm sure it's probably rather broad, so what kinds of things do you do as a sports psychologist?
Well, if someone comes in, like let's say you were to come in and work with me on your tennis game, we would sit down. First, I'd want to know what your issues are, what's going on. Is it a confidence problem? Is it a focusing problem? An attitude issue? whatever that might be. We'll identify the topic or issues that are bringing you in, and then we basically, Melanie, set up a mental game plan to help you work on that. And we work through, I might do some personality evaluation depending on what's going on, and we'll sit down and basically come up with a game plan to help you identify and work through the issues that are going on. I have lots of teams that I consult with where I'll go work with the team and identify problems, and then we have team meetings, and a lot of it's focused on communication. A lot of it's talking about problems, working through them, and coming up with game plans and solutions. I have a lot of exercises. I've done a lot of work over the years with relaxation and visualization. I have CDs that I've made on visualization that are on my website, also on iTunes, that help you get mentally prepared to compete and to be successful in what you want to do.
Now, I've heard that visualization before, and I've heard successful athletes talk about that. I've heard successful entrepreneurs talk about that, the whole visualization technique. And I think there are people out there who think that's a bunch of buffoonery. But it's been your experience that works.
Oh, I know it works. I've been utilizing it since grad school. I trained under Dr. Robert Nideford, who's one of the really first sports psychologists in the United States, and got into visualization when I was in grad school, and I did my internship at San Diego State University working with the men's tennis team and women's gymnastics team, and I've used it since then. I've had athletes who've won Olympic gold medals, national championships, state championships, high school championships, college championships, and they've all used, we integrate visualization into their preparation. And it works. It shows that the research has found that between 80 and 90% of people who visualize have a greater chance of success than people who don't. And basically what it is, Melanie, is this. Taking the time in your mind to go through your event, see yourself doing it successfully, also see yourself confronting difficult situations where you may get stressed or anxious or nervous, and have a game plan to prepare. I always talk about preparing for winning, losing, coming from behind, and being way ahead. Be prepared for all the situations. So if in your mind you go through that and practice that, you'll have a much greater chance of success when you're there.
Okay, so it's not because there are people out there, which I'm sure you're aware, especially in your field, that present the whole visualization thing as a kind of woo-woo magical thing. But the way you just explained it, it's very practical.
Well, psychology is common sense. And when you talk about visualization, and yeah, I've been dealing with the people who doubt sports psychology since I started my professional career 36 years ago. And there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in sports psychology. They think it's hocus pocus and a bunch of bunk. But it's not. It's applying practical solutions to helping people deal with issues. And visualization is just one component of mental training. I talk about 4 keywords, Melanie, that I have found. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete, if you're in any type of relationship. These 4 words I found over the years are what I try to focus with people on. First is preparation. How do you get ready mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, nutritionally? What are the things you do to get ready to do your radio show every day? How do you get prepared for that?
Right.
You have to take some time to think about it and prepare for it. Second is focus. What do you concentrate on? Excuse me. What are the things you have to concentrate on while you're doing it? But also, what are the distractions that get in the way that inhibit your focus? Third is attitude. And there are 3 kinds of attitudes. In fact, I'll throw this question at you. What do you think the 3 kinds of attitudes people can have are?
A positive attitude, right? A negative attitude.
There's one.
Right.
There's 2. Boy, you're batting 1,000%. Listen to you.
And probably the one in the middle is like no attitude. What's the word? That's not the word I'm looking for. Like ambivalence. Like
I call it. Okay, you did great. You just I call it a realistic attitude.
Ah, okay.
Here's why. Positive, the research has found it takes 12 positive statements to overcome 1 negative for the average person.
Okay.
Okay, negativity is everywhere, right? I mean, all we have to do is turn on the radio, turn on the TV, look on your email. There's negativity everywhere. Okay, so being positive isn't the easiest thing to do. Realistic attitude is, the way I look at it, especially in sports, you're going to encounter stressful situations. You're going to encounter situations where you may not be doing as well as you want. How will you deal with that realistically instead of letting the negativity take over?
Gotcha.
And then that takes us to the fourth word, which is the foundation of all of them, which is confidence. So let me ask you another question, Melanie. Do you have to be confident to be successful, or do you have to be successful to be confident?
Wow. I was going to say both, but I guess the first one. And here's why I was going to say both, because I think success contributes to your confidence, and it may be that also may be me being around too many liberal teachers for too long, because that is the theory in education, is that if you build a child's confidence, they'll be successful, which is the every person gets a trophy theory, which is not my theory.
Well, that's great. No, I agree with you 100%. Here's why. You're right. Confidence and success go hand in hand, but the way I look at it is, if you're confident and you fail, you'll be disappointed, but it won't be any big deal because you'll come back tomorrow and go after it. So if you have to be successful to be confident, what happens if you fail? Well, then your confidence isn't there.
There you go.
And so I think confidence is the foundation. And look, we grow up learning all kinds of things. Years ago, I heard a story about an Olympic snowboarder. And this young man talked about how he was successful, and he said when he was an infant, his uncle used to put him on top of the refrigerator and let him crawl off and fall, but he'd always catch him right before he hit the ground. Probably a good idea.
Right.
And so he wasn't afraid of falling. And he said, I had no fear of falling. And I think, he built his confidence up. And what I found over the years with so many young people today, their confidence gets damaged, destroyed, or harmed by overzealous parents, overzealous coaches, people who are in it for the wrong reasons. You mentioned the whole trophy deal. My feeling is, if you're a young child and it's the first year you enter a sports league or a competition, there's nothing wrong in getting a trophy that first year. But after that, no, you don't need one, because here's the deal. Those things are going to collect dust, sit on shelves, end up in a box in a garage or a basement or an attic somewhere. The lesson you really get out of the competition is the experience, and how you learn how to get better, how you learn to deal with negativity, and what you learned about yourself. So the trophies and rewards and plaques, they're irrelevant really in the end. It's the experience that you get. Well,
exactly. And in the public school system, which I am a former member, the theory is completely opposite. In fact, they're moving to this thing called standards-based grading and stuff like that, and measuring student growth, which, can you imagine that? So in other words, the theory is, if a child comes in your room, say I'm teaching 10th graders, but I have a student that comes in my room who's only at the 8th grade level. If he leaves my room at the end of the year at the 9th grade level, then I'm considered a successful teacher, even though I'm teaching a 10th grade level class.
Let me rephrase this. I asked my clients to write down 5 lists for me about themselves. Their goals, their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, and their distractions. I have people keep journals and do a lot of writing, because I find that it's important to really look at yourself. But
Indeed.
Those lists right there, first of all, we start with goals. There are essentially 2 types of goals: materialistic and non-materialistic. And when I have people come in and talk about the materialistic goals, how many games they want to win, how many hits they want to get, how many A's they want to make in school, whatever it might be, I'll sit there and talk about, all right, those are great things to want to do, but how do you get those? It's with your commitment, it's your desire, your motivation, your attitude, your focus, your preparation, your confidence, all those things. It's the things you can't measure that in the end give you the materialistic goals. So it's interesting how a lot of people will then reevaluate the goals they write down and focus on, I want to feel better about myself every day. Well, you can't measure how you feel.
Right.
You can measure the results of the grade you get depending on how you feel. So then it's a matter of looking at perspectives and attitudes. And I don't care if it's a sport, if it's, like I said earlier, a relationship, school, whatever it might be in the business world. I do a lot of work with salespeople as well on these types of things. I'm helping them try to get a game plan, a mental game plan to help them deal with these things and focus on the things you can't measure. And that's what gets you the results.
See, that makes a whole lot of sense. I never understood the details, and I can't be alone. I have to think that there are members of my audience who are in the same boat. I never understood the mechanics, is probably a better word, of visualization, like in utility. I always thought that maybe it was some kind of spiritual thing or or something like that. I didn't realize that there was an actual, I should have, there was an actual brain utility behind the practice of visualization. But it makes a whole lot of sense. It really is just preparation, is what I'm hearing.
Well, it is, and to give you an example, I worked for many years with many athletes who've done really well. One young man I worked with for years is Tom Gordon, who pitched for 20 years in the major leagues, and at one point he had the major league record for 54 consecutive saves. And we had a whole visualization routine he would use when he pitched with the Red Sox and the Yankees. He had the record when he pitched with the Red Sox, and we worked through a visualization exercise he'd go through every game. I mean, when you're a closer in baseball, you're only going to come in if the team's ahead or you need some extra work and have a pitch in a few days. So he would have a routine he'd go through to go down to the bullpen because he wouldn't pitch to the last inning or two. And we would go through and he would visualize the lineup. He'd picture himself in the game every time he'd come in. And it worked. I've worked with field goal kickers, free throw shooters in basketball. I had a young man at the University of Kansas back in the 1980s who will always hold the Big 8 record because the Big 8 doesn't exist anymore. It's the Big 12, but he made over 30 free throws in a row using a visualization technique. There's a field goal kicker I work with who, when he retired, was the most accurate kicker in the NFL, and he had a whole visualization exercise he would work with before he would kick. So these things work, and it's about getting your mind trained to focus on what you want to accomplish. But it's not just about the success, Melanie. It's about dealing with the failure. How am I going to react if I screw up? And I need to be prepared for that mentally, because if I'm not, then I can get stressed out, anxious, and overloaded and mentally fall apart.
That seems to me to probably be the most, probably more important than anything. I mean, you see those, you see like ice skaters and things like that, competitively ice skating, and you see them fall, and you just wonder how in the world they get back up and just continue on. And this must be how it is that they do that.
Well, it is, and I work with skaters and divers and gymnasts all the time. Three sports that are very subjective in the way their scores are determined by somebody's opinion, not by an actual number. I mean, they're given a number, but it's someone's opinion of what they've done. And yeah, skaters can fall, gymnasts fall off the beam, divers can have a bad dive, but you have to keep moving on. And it doesn't matter what. Visualization in the sport of golf has been very well documented and promoted. Jason Day, one of the top golfers in the world, it's very well known that before he hits a shot, he stands behind the ball, and they'll show him during tournaments, closing his eyes and visualizing the shot before he hits it. So he'll see the shot in his mind before he hits that ball, and it makes a big difference. Like I said earlier, the research has found that between 80 and 90% of people who visualize have a greater chance of success. So it's something that does work, and as you said earlier, it's not hocus pocus or something that people make up. It's about training your mind to concentrate on what you want to do. Before you do your show every day, don't you take some time to think about it and get prepared mentally?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially depending on, who it is that I'm talking to. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know you were nervous about coming and talk to me about this, so therefore you had to get prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, I did. Listen, I'm nervous before every show, honestly. I am.
Well, but you know what? That's a good thing, because that means you care. I mean, the day you stop getting nervous and the day you stop getting anxious about what you're doing, then there's no more excitement left, and then it's like, why am I doing this?
That's true. That's you're very right. You're very right. I mean, the people I get to talk to, I'm very fortunate in that I get to talk to experts like you, senators and doctors of all kinds of philosophies and theories and economics. I talk to some fantastic people and who are experts in their fields like yourself. And I'm always nervous because I always learn something. Every single time, I learn something.
Let me ask you a question then, since you're talking about being nervous. Are you worried beforehand that you're going to say the wrong thing or ask the wrong question? Does that ever enter your mind?
I'll answer on the other side of the break. I'll let that be a cliffhanger. It's time for us to take a break, and we're talking to Dr. Andrew Jacobs. He is a come on, Melanie. I'm worried about stuff like that. See. He's a sports psychologist, very well-known sports psychologist, and we'll be back on the other side of the break.
From the warfront to the streets of our nation's capital, men of faith, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and Kenneth McClinton, the exceptional conservative, bring both constitutional gravitas and spiritual perspective on today's issues to the most influential Christian urban talk show, 9:05 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays. It's a new day on New Day, Black and Red. Hey, it's Jersey Joe. Book Reaver, Common Sense. You can catch me every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com. It's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, shrmedia.com.
It is now.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. Psychologist Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Psychologist Sean and Psychologist Clint. We're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best late-night conservative talk, Psychologist Radio. The best late-night conservative talk show in America. And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Oh my goodness! So the statist Republicans trotted out Obamacare Light. I feel it is yet another insult to the American people. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, so now we the people are possibly being forced to wait indefinitely before there will be any serious tax cuts because the powers that be decided not to cut one single tax until after Obamacare is replaced. One of the excuses used to drag the process out is certain Senate procedure rules, and also if Obamacare is totally brought up for a vote, then the progressives like Chucky Schumer will filibuster and prevent any progress. To that I say bunk, because if they would have done a better job of defending the medical marketplace when Ali Obama was foisting his socialist health-damaging system upon us, perhaps the dilemma they now refer to wouldn't be occurring now. So basically, this drip-drip-drip approach will do little to relieve the burden now faced by the average American who has to endure it, unlike Congress and President Trump, who enjoy a far superior form of health care. Meanwhile, this Step 1, Step 2, Step 3 approach kicks needed tax reductions further down the road. Those midterm elections will be very interesting, to say the least. I'm Ron Edwards.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's Bigfooted enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe.
Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR media. Good night, boys, for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Hi, my name is Willie Lawson of The Willie Lawson Show here on the Exceptional Conservative Network, Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. They told me that I needed to be humble, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, so I decided to be awesome instead. That's The Willie Lawson Show, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. here on the Exceptional Conservative Network.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Good morning. We are back. You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. This is your business diva, Melanie Collette, and Money Talk with Melanie. We have with us this morning Dr. Andrew Jacobs, a sports psychologist and author of Just Let 'Em Play. And Dr. Jacobs, who clearly cannot help himself, asked me before. He loves his job. I love that. That is so clear. Asked me before the break, what was I nervous about? Right before every show, wasn't that the question?
That's correct, Melanie. I'm putting you on the spot. So, what makes you nervous doing a radio show?
Okay, here's what makes me nervous. I get to talk to people who are experts in their field, which the field of finance and business is quite broad, and it's impossible to know absolutely everything. And so I want to ask good questions, and my biggest fear, I think, is that a guest is going to respond and I'll have no idea what they're talking about. That's my biggest fear.
So if that happens, so that's like let's take a sports scenario, because it's the same thing.
Yes.
You can have a coach who has a player do something that they had no idea they would do, like a real dumb play.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
How's the coach going to react to that? How's the player going to react to that? And how do they move on? Because if you're on a team, everybody has to work together. And if somebody does something really dumb or stupid, then you've got to be able to react to that. So there has to be a game plan for that. So you have to have a game plan for success, a game plan for failure, a game plan for mediocrity. You have to have a game plan for all these things before you go compete. And that's where being nervous is, I hope you're nervous when you interview people.
Right.
Because that's motivation, right? That gets you excited.
That makes me do research, is what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you did a little research on me, and that's what I do. So
absolutely.
You got prepared. That's the whole thing. But sometimes there's going to be an answer. You're going to go, I don't know how to respond to it. I've been on the radio for 26 years, as I said, and it's a call-in show on Sunday morning from 7 to 8. 7 to 8 on a Sunday morning is not to have a call-in show. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, so there are shows where I've never had a show where I didn't get a caller. But I've had shows where I've gone through the first whole segment talking without a caller. Oh. So I have to be prepared with my topic and say, if I get calls or I don't get calls, how am I going to deal with it? So you've got to have that game plan for you for how you're going to deal with that anxiousness when you get nervous. Because it's like, if they answer a question, you've got some economics professor from Princeton on, and he gives you some answer, you're like, well, I didn't really understand that. Then what do you do? How do you react?
How I react is, now I'm going to give my audience a little inside baseball, is I will usually say, explain to my audience the details of how that works, or something like that.
And that's okay to do that.
So sometimes that's legitimate. Sometimes that's a legitimate question that I already had prepared. Because I know it's something that the audience may not necessarily be familiar with, like quantitative easing or, some kind of, complex economic topic. But sometimes I legitimately have no idea what that person just said. So I'll say.
But you know what? And this is the whole thing. And I always tell people, we're all human. Melanie, this is a comment you asked earlier about when people come in my office. One of the common responses I get from people is I'll ask these young athletes, teenage athletes, professional athletes, are you a perfectionist? And what do you think they say?
No.
No, they say yes.
Or they say yes.
So many of them tell me, yes, I'm a perfectionist. And so then my next question is, well, okay, who in your life have you ever met who's perfect?
Right.
And then they look at me sort of with a blank stare, well, nobody. And I said, okay, well, if nobody's perfect and you're trying to be perfect, how can you be happy?
Oh, now stop. Now, you know the reason why I said no is because I'm a perfectionist, right?
Yeah, I figured that one. So, no, but it's like, but that's my game, that's my point, though. You've got to be ready to deal with things when they don't go your way.
For sure.
And no one wants to screw up. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to come in first. But like I said, it doesn't always happen. I mean, the NCAA tournament's going on.
Yes.
I'm a huge University of Kansas basketball fan. The team lost to Oregon in the Elite Eight last Saturday night. In Kansas City, in front of 18,000 people, 500 for Oregon and the rest for KU. It didn't work out their way. They didn't play well. They just got the player. Frank Mason III got named Player of the Year. They're not in the Final Four. They're disappointed. But you know what? It happens, and you've got to deal with that stuff. And unfortunately, in sports and in life, things don't always go our way. So how we prepare to react to that's really important.
So in your preparing your athletes, do you prepare them for failure or always just to win?
We prepare for all situations. We prepare for success, for failure, for being dead even in a race. You're running a race and you're dead even with somebody with 10 meters to go. A great example is Michael Phelps in this past year in the Olympics. And it was interesting because there was a race, one of the two butterfly races he swam. They showed him sitting, preparing in the corner with his hoodie on. And a lot of jokes made about him. He looked like Darth Vader, but he was getting into his race mode. And they showed one of his competitors from South Africa dancing around doing this weird stretching stuff, bouncing all over the place. And then when they raced, they saw Phelps focusing on his lane, focusing on his race. And the other competitor, the guy from South Africa, every time he'd take a stroke, would look over at Michael Phelps. Well, why is he looking at Michael Phelps when he's supposed to be swimming straight ahead?
Right.
Because he was scared, he was worried, so Phelps was prepared. Phelps has talked about this many times with many of his medals. Back in Beijing with one of the medals he won against a Hungarian, they were neck and neck coming into the finish line in one of the butterfly races, and he knew he had to push to the wall. He knew the guy was next to him, but he wasn't worried about it. He was focusing on what he had to do. And so it comes down to being prepared for these situations. If in your mind you're not scared to be behind in a race or be behind in a match, but you've got a game plan of what you have to focus on, you'll have a greater chance for success.
That is excellent advice. It never occurred to me that you prepare to fail as an athlete or actually in any aspect of life when you talk about success and things like that. Like, I've never read that in any self-help book, which it seems to me that it should be in there. Like, prepare how you're going to handle if you fail.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in anything, no one is always successful in everything we do. I mean, it's like one of the worst things I think that I find for a lot of young people are these young athletes or young students who make straight A's all the time.
Yes.
Well, what are you going to do when you make a B? How are you going to handle that? How will your parents handle that? What if you are always coming out on top in your athletic events when you're 8, 9, 10? What happens when you're 12 and 13 and the other kids catch up to you with their maturity-wise and their growth and you don't always succeed? A lot of young people have trouble with that. So I think it's in our book, Just Let Them Play. Our third chapter is called Embracing Failure Can Lead to Fun. And I think we don't teach kids today, Melanie, how to lose and how to fail. I'm 62 years old, and when I grew up, sports growing tennis, but we would go up to the elementary school up the street from me and play football and baseball, and we'd play basketball in my driveway. And it didn't matter whether we won or lost. We just had fun.
Right.
And I think so many people are so focused on results today that the experience has gone out the window.
Amen. You could preach on that. That is a perfect way to wrap up our commentary, because before you go, I want to make sure that you tell the audience where they can get your book and how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to utilize your services.
Well, thank you very much for that. I've really enjoyed talking with you this morning. This has been a fun conversation.
So did I.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, my website is winnersunlimited.com, WINNERS unlimited.com, and you can reach me there. My book is called Just Let Him Play, co-written with Jeff Montgomery, three-time All-Star pitcher, Pete Malone, Olympic Hall of Fame swim coach, and it's available at my website. It's also available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for agreeing to be interviewed today. It was a fantastic conversation. I hope to have you back.
Well, I'd love to. I really enjoyed it, and thank you very much, and you have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Call ended.
You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Chicana Ranch is involved in helping youth through the snags along the pathway to adulthood. The last 8 years have created greater challenges. Having a president to parade perversion to our youth has generated the need for us to ramp up our character learning 100-fold. Today's youth are confused, and our goal is to give them a fresh understanding of creation, moral clarity, respect for authority, in short, restore absolutes and boundaries. Boys are born boys and girls are born girls, God's design. Right is right even when no one else is doing it. The Exceptional Conservative Network is underway to raise $10,000 to help advance this mission. Together, let's reverse the confusion aimed at our youth. Don't be a spectator. Go to our donation portal and make your financial contribution now. Your gift goes toward helping youth get clarity, moral clarity. Thank you.
Donovan Larkins, founder and president of Chicana Ranch Youth Foundation, offers a sincere opportunity for you to protect children from molestation and sexual abuse and help abused children receive their healing. In addition, Pastor Larkins is joining forces with the Exceptional Conservative Network to raise awareness of the growing crisis of unresolved homicides, missing persons, and sex trafficking in urban America. Help us put an end to the grief and unnecessary loss of life of unresolved homicides, missing persons, and sex trafficking. Go to the Exceptional Conservative Network homepage at theexceptionalconservativeshow.com and donate today. I want to thank everyone for listening to the show today. I want to thank everyone in the chat. Also want to thank Dr. Andrew Jacobs for being on the show this morning. Just a fantastic guest this morning. And I will be back with you on Monday. I want everyone to have a fantastic weekend. And remember, this is important because it's your money.